Welcome to Peterson Family Farm. We are out roguing rye today. It rained last night, so we're not doing any field work, but we can still walk through the fields. And we've got 6 of us out here pulling rye out of the wheat field. Got some girl power going on. You guys ready to do this?
Oh yeah.
All right, let's rogue some rye. Some years in Kansas we have rye worse than other years. 2 years ago we had to do some roguing, and it was just a little bit here and there. This year it seems to be everywhere, and we think that's probably because of the freeze damaging the wheat crop, and weeds come up whenever your crop is damaged or thin. Basically what we do is we walk through the field and we look for the taller heads of rye, and we pull those, and that keeps that from reseeding the next wheat crop. And every time you let a weed go like rye, it gets more and more. We got to keep it from spreading, so we're going to find all the weeds and pull them, and hopefully that'll prevent them from coming back next time. All right, I got my first culprit here. So this is what we're after, and you can kind of see how it sticks up above the wheat. That's how you know it doesn't belong. And we like to pull it out by the roots so that it doesn't keep growing. And then I stick it down below the wheat so it doesn't fool me next time, because we kind of scour the field here looking for taller heads. And if you pull one and you drop it back down and it lands on its feet and still sticks up above the crop, then sometimes you go back and try to pull it again and it's already loose. So. All right, so Brooke-Anna's over there, and then I'm here, and then we've got Kendall, Dad, and Mom, and Laura down the hill over there, and we're kind of taking swaths across the field, trying to cover the most area that we can. Die, rye. It's a showdown. Who's gonna win? Fight for the ages. Oh, die! Take that!
I'm Audrey. I'm a service leader here. Pastor Kyle will be back next weekend. And that is a video from the Peterson Farm Brothers, and they have a YouTube channel. It's family-friendly farming content. Our household is a fan. That video is titled Roguing Rye. If you didn't catch at the beginning, he said we're going to go rogue some rye, and he shows what roguing rye is, which sounds like a very official, like James Bond term for that. And I picked that video because it's a really good 2020, maybe 2023 visual of what we're going to talk about today, because we're going to be in the parable of the weeds. And if you're somebody who's fascinated by different types of grass, this isn't the exact same weed that we're going to talk about. It's basically the difference between rye and ryegrass. It's pretty close, okay? Also, they're from Kansas. So if you didn't notice in the background of that video, their fields are enormous. They laugh at our little postage stamp size fields, like our 10-acre hay fields. They don't even get anything out of the barn for a 10-acre hay field. Forget it. I have a hard time understanding how big of a field that is, and knowing that as a farmer, they wake up one morning and they're like, well, today's the day we go rogue some rye. Me and my ragtag army of like 5-6 other people are going to walk by foot through this field and pull weeds by hand. I'm thankful that I'm a beef farmer and I don't need to go do that. But the more I got thinking on it, this is kind of like the everyday struggle. You might not have to go pick rye, but we deal with things all day that are seeds that we didn't sow. So I was thinking about, like, personally, there's a lot of things that are heavy for me that are not necessarily seeds that I've sown. Personally, I know far too many people grieving the loss of a loved one to suicide. And those things, they kind of like nibble at this picture I have of a loving and caring God. And sometimes I look around and I'm like, what is this? And I know that I'm not alone here, because in small groups, after service, throughout the week, we We know this. We know people who have lost their jobs, people who have lost their living situation, lost relationships. And a common conversation that we have as we look around at the brokenness, we're like, whoa, I don't get this. We didn't sow these seeds, but here we are, and it's heavy. And society, like, we're really good at trying to anchor into something. And for, it's certainly not us, but other people, they do this. And they might say something like, well, when I get that promotion, then I'll be financially secure and I'll have my stuff together. Or certainly, again, not anybody here, might say something like, I just need to get this new subscription to this great app that's going to help me track my macros. And then I'm going to work out like 5 days a week, and I'll have my fitness figured out, and I'll be healthy forever. We try to anchor into those things, and they don't work, and we can laugh about it. But when we look around at the brokenness, it can be kind of hard to anchor into God, because we look around, how is this part of the plan? I don't get it. Well, we're going to revisit that question, but today we're going to be in Matthew chapter 13, which, yes, is the same chapter of Matthew that Pat was in last week. The passage we're going to look at today actually sandwiches the passage that Pat looked at last week. So it would probably be helpful if you saw it, if you want to open up your Bible app or the Pew Bible to Matthew chapter 13. And it'll be titled something about the parable of the weeds or something close to that. It'll be on the screen too. So starting in Matthew 13, chapter 13, I said that, verse 24, to set the scene, because in our two sections here, there's going to be like a scene change before the second. But to set the scene for our first section of this sandwich, Jesus is in a boat of some sort in the water in Galilee, the Sea of Galilee, and there's a bunch of people on the crowd, or a crowd on the shore. I'm getting all the words mixed up. This is going to be great. Buckle up. And in this crowd, this is a mixed crowd of some people who would have had a positive outlook of Jesus, of, oh, he's definitely the Messiah, and I'm going to follow. And there also would have been some people that were kind of neutral of, oh, is he the Messiah? I'm not sure. What do you think? Maybe. And there definitely would have been some people who were quite negative toward Jesus. So this is a mixed group. And Jesus has been teaching for a while, and so it says here, he put another parable before them saying, which is just a weird way to say, he presented them with another parable. The kingdom of heaven may be compared to a man who sowed good seed in his field. But while his men were sleeping, his enemy came and sowed seeds among the wheat and went away. So when the plants came up and bore grain, then the weeds appeared also. Okay, so Jesus is comparing the kingdom of heaven to this field situation that we're going to look at. And the man who sowed the good seed in his field, he was the owner of the field, everybody went to sleep. An enemy came, his enemy came, and sowed a bunch of seeds in the night. Now all of them have sprouted, and we can see that there's wheat and weeds in this field. And to us, it's kind of like, yeah, that stinks. But if you think about the people that Jesus was talking to in this crowd, they lived and died by the field. So this is incredibly devastating. This might be akin to like when nobody here watches like those terrible Dateline shows, right? And we watch them and we go, ooh, that's scandalous and dramatic and devastating. What if that were me? This would have been really devastating for them. This would have been their whole livelihood. And I don't know if in 2024 we can completely get that. But we have a shared experience. Remember a couple years ago when you might have gone to the store looking for toilet paper? Okay, yeah. And there was none. Thankfully, most of us could probably just go to Target instead of Walmart and maybe find a roll there. And if that didn't work, we could go to Dollar General. And if that didn't work, there was Rite Aid on the corner. And then maybe the next month, we went looking for beef, and there was no beef on the shelves. And I think the month after that, maybe it was like canned goods. And then there was formula. If you were on the short side of the formula shortage, you might kind of get this. This would have been extremely devastating. Like if our stores were suddenly totally empty, what would we do? This had that level of devastation for them. Verse 27, and the servants of the master of the house came and said to him, Master, did you not sow good seed in your field? How then does it have weeds? And he said to them, the owner of the field said, an enemy has done this. So the help has come, and they're asking the owner of the field, what happened here? And the owner of the field says, an enemy has done this. So it wasn't any of us. This was out of our hands. These were seeds that we did not sow. So the servants said to him, then do you want us to go and gather them? Meaning, do you want us to go pick the weeds? But he said, no, lest in gathering the weeds, you root up the wheat among them. Let both grow together until the harvest. And at harvest time, I will tell the reapers or harvesters, gather the weeds first and bind them in bundles to be burned, but gather the wheat into my barn. So the servants, they present this solution. We got a problem. This is a problem. Do you want us to take care of it? And the owner says, no, don't take care of it that way because I want to be very careful to not uproot the wheat. So we're going to wait until harvest, and then we will tell the harvesters, we're going to give them specific directions to gather the weeds first, tie them up in bundles, we will burn those. And then we will take all of the wheat and we will put that in the barn. Okay, so we're at the end of our first half of this sandwich, and we know we're in a parable, and so we know we're looking for symbolism. Pat helped us out with that last week, talking about how parables are kind of like allegories, some stories that might sound like parables because they have deeper meaning to them. Might be like the tortoise and the hare, or I don't know, is the Three Little Pigs one? The Three Little Pigs, I got it. I know my fables and stuff, totally. And so we know we're going to be looking for symbolism here. But if you're kind of like me and you're afraid to try to turn things into symbols that aren't supposed to be symbols, you might swing that direction and be like, oh, nope, I'm just going to take this story at face value. Or maybe you're also kind of like me and you're like, but I also don't want to turn things into symbols that aren't symbols, or I don't want to miss things that... We're going to get there, and I happen to pick a better passage than you, Pat, because Jesus is going to explain it here in a minute. So I got the easier one. But before we go there, I'm going to steal two terms from the Bible Project. And if you have no idea what the Bible Project is, please leave here with the homework to go Google the Bible Project. They do a really great job of turning big theological type of ideas into something that like the everyday person who did not go to Bible school can understand. And the terms I'm going to steal are meaning and significance. And it's really hard to not say the meaning of meaning is. But when we're referring to meaning, we're talking about what the speaker intended for the listener to understand. I guarantee you've had this situation in your household. So when we're talking about meaning, it's communicator focused. And then when we get to significance, we're going to talk about how the meaning affects you, what the meaning means to you, listener focused. So maybe an example of this would be, if you don't already know one that maybe happened this morning in your house, if I say to you, it's going to rain today, I'm intending to tell you, it's going to rain. But if you're a farmer and you're trying to plant or you have hay out in the field, the significance to you is, this is not going to go well. I need to pick up the hay, whatever else. Or if I tell you it's going to rain and you're somebody who's going to go have a picnic today, you're going to know this also means I need to find a park with a pavilion. I probably need to bring some towels in case it rains. That's the difference between meaning and significance. So before we can get to significance, we got to start with the meaning. And we kind of already know that. At the very beginning, Jesus said, the kingdom of heaven may be compared to. So I'm not a rocket scientist. I just read what Jesus said. This is a surprising picture of the kingdom. So keep in mind, this picture of a kingdom or king was very different than what the people Jesus was talking to were expecting in a king. Their vision of a king that's going to come and alleviate them of the harsh circumstances and everything else that was going on might look, in 2024, might look more like some big, strong, like Jason Momoa. Jason Momoa pulls in on Air Force One, and everybody bows down to his authority. Everybody takes care of. Jason Momoa says, I'm a little thirsty, and so people just bring him all kinds of options of what to drink. That kind of authority is what these people were looking for. And instead, there's Jesus, who is saying, oh no, the least will serve. And he's the king that's going to serve. not what they were expecting. So this is a very surprising picture of the kingdom. And he's painting this picture of the kingdom using an illustration that everybody at the time would have understood. Again, the Dateline thing. This would have been scandalous. This would have been a really big deal. They would have felt it. They would have felt how life-changing this now weedy field would have been. So we're going to move on to the second part of our sandwich, and we will revisit meaning because Jesus explains it. And if you're looking in the Bible, you'll now be looking for a heading that sounds something like Jesus explains the parable of the weeds. Fantastic, right? So in verse 36, we have this scene change. So they're now like in Capernaum. If you're not into the geography, it kind of goes in one ear and out the other ear. Don't let that piece trip you up. But know that Jesus left the crowds and went into the house, because of course we all know what the house is. And his disciples came to him saying, "Explain to us the parable of the weeds in the field." And I first read that, and I was in my good Bible reading voice, I heard the disciples say, "Jesus, would you please explain to us the parable of the weeds in the fields?" And then I remembered, Jesus got a little sarcastic from time to time, and he even had nicknames for some of the disciples. And so the commentaries did not say this, but I have a feeling it might have actually sounded like this. "Jesus, you've got to explain to us the parable of the weeds in the field. Is it me? Am I the weeds? Tell me what's going on." Again, I didn't go to Bible college, but it's possible. So Jesus answers, "The one who sows the good seed is the Son of Man. The field is the world, and the good seed is the sons of the kingdom. The weeds are the sons of the evil one, and the enemy who sowed them is the devil. The harvest is the end of the age, and the reapers are angels." So going back to that whole symbolism thing of I have to figure out what's what in the story, Jesus tells us. And I don't really have a good way to explain this other than in picture. And I had a really fun time doing this, especially the last one. So we have here the owner of the field as Jesus. The field itself would be the world. We've got the good seed, are the followers, sons of the kingdom. The weeds, sons of the evil one. The enemy being the devil. And then, yes, I had to make this a green combine. Had to be green, and it was just so fun to put it next to angels, things I never expected I would do with my life. The reapers or the harvesters are angels. All right, so we've got a bigger picture of the meaning. We have one more small section. "Just as the weeds are gathered and burned with the fire, so it will be at the end of the age. The Son of Man will send his angels. They will gather out of the kingdom all causes of sin and all lawbreakers, and throw them into the fiery furnace. In that place there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. Then the righteous will shine in the sun in the kingdom of their Father. He who has ears, let him hear." That's a pretty grim picture. I guess it maybe it depends on what side of the coin you're looking at here. A couple notes, though. Lawbreakers does not necessarily mean that Jesus is coming for you because you've done 72 on the thruway instead of 65. He is talking about those that are the bad seeds that have been the son of the enemy, not just those that forgot to wear their seatbelt, okay? When we go further and we get this picture of the fiery furnace, and in that place there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. If the fork touches my teeth while I'm eating, my whole body feels it. So that sounded awful. I also grind my teeth at night, and so I kind of have an idea of the gnashing of teeth. But when I looked it up, it actually is referring to like a deep guttural moaning of agony, which of course sounds just as bad as the fork on my teeth. But then in contrast, the righteous will shine like the sun in the kingdom of their Father. So the followers, those who Jesus sees as righteous, will shine like the sun. And he finishes with this line that if you've looked at parables before, you've probably heard many times. "He who has ears, let them hear." And it's a good time if you're asking the question, so in these two pieces of the sandwich, Jesus is speaking in riddles up here, but he tells the disciples what he means. What's the deal with that? Because I would be really frustrated. I guess maybe if I was a disciple, I wouldn't be. But we have to remember at the beginning, Jesus is talking to this broad group. And we know that Jesus, when he tells these parables, he's trying to appeal to the imagination of the lost, trying to paint them a picture for things that they don't yet know or understand. And this time, he's talking to the disciples, the people who presumably had ears to hear, that had bought in and could understand what he was saying. And so he finishes with that line after he explains it. All right, as promised, we go back to meaning. We still have a surprising picture of the kingdom, a picture painted in a story in a way that the audience really would have understood and taken home. And we have our symbolism here. Thank you to Jesus. We're not guessing about that. So we've got our meaning. We've got our foundation here. So now we can move forward into significance. This isn't as surprising of a picture of the kingdom for us. Maybe that's because of the culture we live in. We might be like a postmodern culture. As a culture, we still do celebrate Christmas, Easter, and the roots are in Christianity. So this might not be quite as surprising and shocking of a picture of the kingdom for us. And that's okay. It's still really relevant. This is still a piece of the gospel, God's redeeming story, and his plan. And it's a reminder of the reality of the end of the age, which I also really liked in the video. Greg, he was the Peterson farm brother on there. He said something about it's a battle for the ages. And I do know that they're Christians, but I have a feeling that was just a coincidence, but I chuckled. We go on our everyday and we get the kids up, we get breakfast going, we go off to work, we get home, maybe weed the garden, go to the baseball game, get the kids ready for bed, pay the bills, put dinner away, the whole thing. Most of us don't think about the reality of the end of the age regularly. And I would get why, because most of the time we're just chugging along, working on sharing Jesus, and this picture is not typically how we try to introduce people to Jesus. So I totally understand if you don't think about the end of the age and the gnashing of teeth often. But it's still a really good picture for us to have. Like if you have not dove into Revelation, you don't stew on the end of the age, this is a really great picture for you to just like back pocket and have with you. But there's a second piece that I want to point out with the significance. There's these couple verses that the whole story hinges on. And as I was preparing, it's like, I'm picking out like 2 verses and I'm going to make significance out of this. Yes, because without this, the story is completely different. So we go back to in the first sandwich, because he didn't talk about it in the second sandwich. But the top half of the sandwich, Jesus says, so the servants came to him and they asked, do you want us to go and gather them? Meaning, do you want us to go pick these weeds? And the owner of the field said, no, lest in gathering the weeds, you root up the wheat along with them. Let both grow together until the harvest. And I think in the context of the story, we could all understand that. But when we look at the deeper meaning of the parable, I don't love that as much. It doesn't make as much sense to me in that context. But we know that God said, let both grow together until the harvest. It's better for them to be together. I don't want to uproot them. We will take care of this at the harvest. So this is part of God's plan. This was part of the picture of the kingdom, the unexpected kingdom. Maybe that part's pretty unexpected for us. God says this is part of the plan. It is better for you to be planted together for now. So we had meaning, we've got significance, but what in the world do I do with it? Find peace. And I say that with a question mark because I know it's not going to be terribly easy. It's something that's way easier said than done. It's the type of thing that you read in a really good greeting card and you go, oh, how nice. I'll just find peace about this. All this stuff that I'm dealing with, seeds that I did not sow, the grieving people around me, the brokenness, and I'll just find peace. No problem, no problem. But the reality is God has you planted. He's keeping you planted, and the harvest will come. And when I told Pat that I was going to do this as part of the application piece, he goes, that is so you. And I did teach preschool for a short while, so buckle up, it's going to be a little weird. We're just going to do it together. We'll giggle about it, and it's fine. But I want you to turn your hands into fists, ball them up into fists. And I want you to straighten your arms out. And I want you to tense all of those muscles, almost like when you were a kid, you might have they had the bars and you would do this on the bars. I want you to fist up your hands, hold your arms nice and straight, and as you do, bring your shoulders up a little bit. They might naturally come up anyways. I know, it's weird, we're doing it together, it's fine, you'll live on the other side. Do you feel the tension that's coming between your shoulders, up into your neck? Now, whether you actually look like this or not, when you're feeling the tension at work, school, whatever, your muscles, they're picking up on it. It's science. It's science. So I want you to practice doing this. Hold it for, 10 seconds or so. We've probably held it for 10 seconds. And then start with your fingers. Loosen up your fingers. From there, loosen your arms enough so you could bend your elbows and pull your shoulders as far down as you can. I want you to do that every day this week. I don't care when. You can do it when you're sitting on the toilet. I don't care. When you're at a red light. I don't care. But I want you to do it for 10 seconds. And as you let go, come up with something to say. Just a short little one-line prayer of, God, I'm letting go because you're in control. God, I don't get it. This is part of your plan, and I'm just going to be in it. You could go shorter than that. You could just be holding it. God, I don't love this situation right now, but I love you, and let it go. And you don't have to tell your friends about it because it's weird. That's fine. But practice letting go of the tension because we know we're planted. The tension's going to be there. So let's practice letting go of the tension. And also, go love people. I hate to be a broken record because we say this all the stinking time. But we look at this story and we know that we are not the sowers and we are not the harvesters. That's not your responsibility. Be a great plant where you are planted. And I know you guys are really good at this. I have been on the receiving end of your love many times. So I know we can do it. I know we are doing it. Be a great plant where you're planted. And in there was a detail about, I don't want to uproot the wheat, is what the farmer said. So he's concerned with your roots. Be concerned about your roots. What can you do to plug in and be rooted well? Again, these are things, we say them all the stinking time. Are you part of a small group? Do you have a prayer practice? Do you have somebody that you can reach out to when you need prayer? By the way, we have service leaders for that. If you don't have one of our numbers, please ask. Please, please. We would love to be part of that with you. Mind your roots. Go love people. You're going to continue to be planted in this field until the harvest comes. So be a great little plant. Let's pray. God, we are so grateful that we have your word to look at. And while that might not be a terribly surprising picture of the kingdom, it's still true, even if it's not as shocking to us as it might have been to the people who originally heard it. It's all part of your plan. And I don't understand your plan, and it's a good thing that we don't. If we did, you would not be the God that we serve. You would not be the God that we worship. So I don't have to know all the details about your plan and the whys. I can anchor into you. I can anchor into the fact that this is your plan. I can anchor into the fact that I know I'm going to be planted here until the harvest. I can anchor into the fact that I can let go of the tension because you do have a plan and you choose us to be part of it. So God, as we go, would you help us to take the meaning, take the significance, use it to help us to find peace, whatever that looks like. Maybe it's in the lovely sunset. Maybe it's in a friend showing up with more dessert than intended. Whatever we're finding peace in, Lord, would it bring us back to you? Would it bring us back to worship in you? And that you would use us to love people. Above all, you said, go love people. We're going to be planted. Help us to love who's around us. We thank you so much for the way that you speak to us and the plans that you have for us. It's in your name that we pray. Amen.
Thanks.